الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة فكشف الله تعالى به الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين من ربه. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الرحمة المهداة وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praises belonging to Allah Azza wa Jal. And may the peace and blessings be upon His beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and upon his family and companions in entirety. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal on this blessed day of Friday, the second Friday in Ramadan, in the middle of this blessed month, that He blesses us to complete the rest of the month with ihsan. اللهم كما أعنتنا على صيام وقيام النصف الأول من رمضان فأعنا على إتمام عدته بإحسان. واكتبنا في هذا الشهر من عبادك المقبولين واكتبنا فيه من عتقائك من النار. Brothers and sisters, Ramadan is a very beautiful, very blessed time. Time in which prayers are answered and rahamat, the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, descend upon His servants. A time in which the gates to Jannah are wide open for anyone who wants to turn to Allah. لِقَضَاءِ حَاجَةٍ min al-hajat, for any need of yours to be fulfilled, whether it's a health need or something relating to your financial situation or something relating to your condition as a family or something personal you're going through or for the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and things that are happening in the East and West. We pray that Allah Azza wa Jal makes Ramadan a month in which تفك فيها الكروب تستجاب فيها الدعوات وتنال فيها الرغائب. Those things that we seek, we pray that Allah gives us them multifold, in exponential amounts in this blessed month of Ramadan. Allahumma ameen. Brothers and sisters, this month is a month of great spiritual presence. Worship teaches us a lot about ourselves. Gathering together to worship teaches us a lot about our community and about the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It's the heartbeat. The spiritual presence of this Ummah is the heartbeat and the pulse of Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a constant source of revival within. That's what Allah teaches us in Ramadan. When we get together as an Ummah to do great things will happen. Brothers and sisters, this sense of spirituality and this extra focus on the inward and on worship needs to translate to something. If we build up all this energy needs some positive releases. That's the whole point of it. The whole point of it is, how is worship going to change me as a person? Going to make me more generous in my perspectives, more devoted in my service of family, of society, of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the whole point of worship. It is to build a sense of taqah. When you have a battery for any item, any piece of technology, that battery is not sought in itself. It's worthless if it's not used. No matter how strong the battery is, if it's not put to use, it's dead weight. It's useless. Worship is our spiritual battery. How is it changing me as a person? What's happening to me in this blessed month of Ramadan? Am I becoming more invested in the service of others? If I am, then I'm on the right path, because that's the path of prophets. The Prophet ﷺ, كان أعبد الناس. He was the most devout person in worship. Between qiyam and siyam and i'tikaf and all those meanings of seclusion and turning to Allah, yet he was the one who was in greatest service of humanity. He cared about people, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had a mountain of compassion. That's what his heart was, a mountain of compassion and empathy. And you know what? That's how he changed people's lives. That's how he won people over. I, as a believer, need to be concerned with what's happening around me. I, as a believer, need to be invested in the condition of the Ummah, of others, of society, way beyond just family, but even family as well. In the middle of this month of Ramadan, it should be a time of great spiritual joy. Unfortunately, as we're very used to, things that are far less than favorable happen in this month around the world. And just recently, today and yesterday, we saw certain things, tragic things, unfold in Palestine, in Palestine. And it just reminds us, as we're trying and we're devoted, we're trying to become of those emancipated from hell, and we're trying to be of those who witness Laylatul Qadr. It reminds us of the condition of our Ummah. It reminds us of the deep wounds that we have in many parts of the world, and we should all care about that. We should teach that to our children. What's happening in Syria, does it concern me? Yeah, it does. What's happening in Yemen or in Egypt or in Palestine or in Kashmir or to our Uyghur brothers and sisters in China or wherever else you may name a plight for humanity, and especially a plight for my Muslim brothers and sisters. That needs to be something I'm concerned about. That needs to be something that triggers certain emotions. And those emotions need to be directed the right way. Because it's easy for us to hear about the sacred space of Al-Aqsa being breached. And if you saw videos of people, soldiers and police entering and beating the people and arresting others and shooting the tear gas and wreaking havoc in a sacred month. Of course that should trigger anger. Of course it should cause a sense of sadness. If it doesn't, then there's a big problem in terms of my understandings. Those feelings need to be triggered. Because if they're not, then I might be falling under what the Prophet ﷺ described in a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he described this despairing attitude that may dominate people. مَنْ لَمْ يَهْتَمْ بِأَمْرِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَلَيْسَ مِنْهُمْ. One who shows no concern for Muslims, or even for humanity for that matter. One who shows no concern for others, for the Muslim Ummah, then he's not really a part of them. He's not really part of that bond that gathers the believers with each other. Allah Azza wa Jal describes this bond. Brothers, we have people standing at the door. Please, if you could come forward. Ifsahu yafsahillahu lakum. Any space that you see, even in the row that's in front of the chairs, please send them in and fill in any space. And inshallah, when it comes time for salah, we will find the space. Brothers and sisters, when it comes to that feeling of disregard for the ummah, that's a scary place to be in. Many people are like that. Yeah, I got my own problems. I don't need to worry about what's happening around the world. I could hardly figure myself out. I could hardly figure myself out. Why should I worry about what's happening in another country? That's not the believer's attitude. Because you know what? I figure myself out by helping others. That's what helps me figure myself out. Brothers and sisters, the meaning of our Prophet ﷺ's life, its greatest value was in his service of others. Wallahi, a life spent serving others is a life worth living. Wallahi, that's what our deen teaches us. And it's not just for any sake or another. It's not because of Palestine or Syria or Kashmir or wherever it is. No. I need to be someone who's deeply concerned and invested in the prosperity of people. That's a very, very important quality of our beloved Prophet ﷺ. That person who has that selfish attitude, and wallahi, it's too dominant today. Wallahi, it's too common in the hearts of people today, that selfish attitude. I can't figure myself out. I don't have time to worry about others. Wallahi, that person who lives for his self and his self alone, when he goes to his grave, his mention is going to die along with him. His value, the life value, the value of his life is going to die along with him. Completely worthless. Wal-'iyadhu billah. That's what we need to combat, a strong sense of individualism that has creeped into the hearts of people. The Prophet ﷺ tells us about another attitude. You know, people, again, those emotions that are not directed in the right way, that anger, that sadness, it leads to a sense of frustration. And when people find that they can't do anything to change the status quo, it causes a very despairing attitude. You know what? The Muslims, they've always been lousy for as far as I could remember. And we've always been in the back of the bus, and we are not organized, and we're very weak, and we have little support, and we're so awful with each other. This person, the Prophet ﷺ said something to him. Prophet ﷺ said, "Man qala inna an-nasa qad halaku fahuwa ahlakuhum." Whoever said people are ruined, he's the most ruined one among them. No, that hopeful, inspiring attitude that our beloved Prophet ﷺ had was what changed people's hearts. The importance of hope. Take a look at this hadith of our beloved Prophet ﷺ. He visited a young man who was dying. A young man who was dying. Happens all too often, even in our communities. It's becoming so much more common in this day and age. And he asked him a question, كيف تجدك? How are you right now? You're about to leave this dunya. How are you feeling? So he told the Prophet ﷺ, Wallahi ya Rasulullah, inni arju Allah wa akhafu dhunubi. I have hope in Allah, but I'm afraid of the things I've done. I have hope in Allah, but I'm afraid of the things I've done. The Prophet ﷺ told him, لا يجتمعان في قلب عبد في مثل هذا الموطن إلا أعطاه الله ما يرجو وآمنه مما يخاف. The Prophet ﷺ said, when these two things, hope in Allah, fear of the things I've done wrong, gather in the heart of a person, then that means that Allah will give him what he hopes and will protect him from what he fears. Brothers and sisters, when we're talking about service of others and concern for the Ummah, that's one of the most efficient ways to wash away athar al-dhunub, right? Some person, entered Ramadan knowing, hey, I've done kaba'ir, I've done major sins. I have some doubts in the back of my mind if I could ever be forgiven for what I've done. Some people, for the past 14 nights of Ramadan, might even be breaking their fast on haram, and they know themselves they're addicted to doing certain things and they can't help themselves. I tell those people, or those people who know they've amassed large amounts of money, and they know in the back of their mind that perhaps some of that money really isn't coming from halal. Perhaps they know that they've cheated a person or two in their life. Perhaps they know that they have a long list of people that they owe money, that they haven't been paying back money to, or so on and so forth. The examples are endless. And they're coming to the masjid and they're making dua and dua and dua. Oh Allah, forgive me for what I've done. Oh Allah, grant me forgiveness, right? Shahr al-maghfirah. غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. One of the most efficient ways to gain that, brothers and sisters, wallahi, is by the service of others. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us something important about the Muslim's attitude towards service. Prophet ﷺ, he says, Al-Muslimun يسعى بذمتهم أدناهم وهم يد على من سواهم. Prophet ﷺ, he says, when it comes to the believers with each other, there's a sense of nusra and wilayah and support between believers. That needs to be there. Even the lowest among them will find support from his brothers and sisters. وَهُمْ يَدٌ عَلَى مَنْ سِوَاهُمْ. And they are like a strong body and a strong force together. That's the rahmah that we want between each other. In all of our affairs, locally and globally, we need this rahmah. If I don't have this sense of rahmah, then I might be from al-ashqiya wal-'iyadhu billah. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he says, لا تنزع الرحمة إلا من شقي. لا تنزع الرحمة إلا من شقي. Someone who could see atrocious things happen or hear about them and not care and not bat an eye, that person is from al-ashqiya ala lisani Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The wicked people, the one who has mercy stripped from his heart, is a wicked person. Why does this matter that happened? Why does this incident, why did this provocation that happened in Jerusalem, in the space of Al-Aqsa, matter to us as individuals? Why does it matter to us? Brothers and sisters, when we're talking about death toll or injuries, that's all secondary, even though there is a few hundred people injured. But what really makes this act so much more egregious is that it happens in this time of the year very often. These provocations in the blessed month of Ramadan. When you had today in Al-Aqsa, 60,000 people there for Jumu'ah. 60,000 people gathered to pray Jumu'ah. It's done in this spirit, in this sense of humiliation and degradation. That's what makes it worst. Trying to strip a group of people from a sense of human dignity and self-worth. Brothers and sisters, we have too many people in our locality, in our country, complaining about their circumstance. Yet they have meat every day on the table. Yet they have every opportunity to work, but they choose not to. There's too many examples of this. Young and old. They go waste away weeks and months on end. You know what? I'm going to get money from unemployment. I'm going to get money from disability. And for a long period of time during the pandemic, it made more sense for people not to work. For some people, a certain bracket, it made more sense not to work. Why should I work? I'm going to get paid less. I'm going to sit at home and relax, and I'm going to get a nice paycheck, and so on and so forth. That's our circumstance. And you have people yet in such a despairing attitude towards life, depressed from their situation, yet they have so much opportunity. Yet for most of the world, including our brothers and sisters in Palestine and in other parts of the Muslim world, there isn't that sense of opportunity. Literally, there isn't that sense of opportunity. We have, as you see, every Friday, every khutbah, first khutbah and second khutbah in our masjid, in ICPC, we have different organizations coming to us, telling us about the plights of different people around the world. How is this affecting me? It should trigger certain emotions. Am I that person in that situation where no matter how good I do at school, no matter what grade I get in college, I'm probably going to end up, doing some mediocre labor work and live on pennies and hope I could survive and hope some relief organization comes and brings some money so I could make a living for my family. Wallahi, there's too many stories of this, especially in recent years when everything that's happening has happened. Why is it so concerning for us, brothers and sisters, about what's happening in Palestine? Brothers and sisters, it's not about Arabism, it's not about Palestinian culture, it's not about ethnicity, it's not about any of that. For us as an ummah, this is a very symbolic thing. For us to constantly be told, hey, you know what? The biggest prison in the world, that's Palestine. For us to constantly be told, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen right before your eyes. You're going to get it through your social media feeds and on videos, and you're not going to do anything about it. Because you as an ummah are a humiliated ummah, a weak ummah that has very little sense of strength and unity. That message, when it's being sent to us, we need to come together. We need to try our best to bring change. And we can bring change. We need to be like one body, brothers and sisters. When we're talking about Haram al-Aqsa, that's something that matters to every Muslim. It's always mattered to every Muslim. It was the rallying call of the Ummah throughout generations. Not because of Palestine or Palestinians, but because it's min sha'airillah. It's because it's from the symbols of Allah. It's from the signs of Allah. It's one of the most sacred spaces that our Prophet ﷺ beautifully and eloquently told us will remain the rallying call until the end of times. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, a person asked the Prophet ﷺ about Bayt al-Maqdis, about Jerusalem. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Salatun fi masjidi hadha afdalu min 4 salawatin fih. ولنعم المصلى هو أرض المحشر والمنشر وليأتين على الناس زمان ولقيد صوت حيث يرى منه بيت المقدس خير من الدنيا وما فيها. Prophet ﷺ, he says in the hadith that the sacred space of Al-Aqsa is after the sacred space of Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. But there's going to come, and it is the land of resurrection, Ard al-Mahshar wal-Manshar. It is the land of resurrection and gathering on the day of judgment. And there's going to come a time, the Prophet said this over 1400 years ago, where people to have a very small piece of land that they see Al-Aqsa from is going to be better than the dunya and all it contains. That's what's happening today. When you look at the incident and the numbers, it's part of a bigger storyline. It's part of a storyline that tells us of an oppressive nation trying to steal the sacred spaces and gain and attribute them to themselves, trying to cleanse Jerusalem and the surrounding spaces from Muslim presence, trying to systemically do oppression in a way that causes generations of hurt. That's what we should think about it when we're talking about Palestine and the Palestinian plight. We need to be aware of this as an ummah. It's something really severe. When you're talking about a prison camp the size of a country, people in that country cannot mobilize themselves very easily. People in that country can't go to the masjid comfortably because they're between being imprisoned or being watched by people who are traitors, people who are spying on their movements and reporting their movements to their oppressors. Brothers and sisters, wallahi, حال يرثى له وحال يحزن القلب. It brings a great sense of sadness for us to be reminded of this in Ramadan, but it also gives us opportunities for hope. Opportunities to say, you know what? We're going to be part of this bigger cause. I'm not going to make myself about me, myself, and I any longer. I need to find useful things to do with my strong sense of spirituality. I'm going to do it in my local community. I'm going to help people wherever I see them. I'm going to do it among my family. I'm going to be a positive presence at home. I'm going to be a positive presence in society around me. I'm going to build the relations that are going to help really change the tide in Palestine. That's been happening for years. That's been happening for years. A lot of efforts have been put into getting where we're at. And unfortunately, a lot more efforts need to be made to really shift things over. But we could be part of that. It's an opportunity for us, brothers and sisters. Wallahi, this type of talk and khutbah in the month of Ramadan is as spiritual as any. This is what a strong sense of spirituality looks like. What's my sense of spirituality? Well, what does my amal look like? What does my action look like? What does my behavior look like? What does my engagement look like? And of course, as we said, we've come to try to do something about this. We've come with different organizations throughout this month, every Friday, to try to inspire people. You know what? I'm going to be part of something bigger. Because the world is not just about me, or about my family, or you know what? About ICPC. There's a bigger world that I'm a part of. I need to make sure that I contribute and I do something to make a difference. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to revive that sense of ummah in our hearts and to make us of those who teach their children to live like this. Train our children to give. Train our children that our deen means making a difference. That's what our deen means, making a difference in society. Being a strong presence wherever we go. That's what our deen's about. So many young faces and young children, because the schools are off this Friday. We want this message to reach to them. However old you are, remember this about your deen, about Islam. Your Islam teaches you that you are part of a community, a society, a country, and you're part of humanity as a whole. And this is part of everything you do. And its betterment is our responsibility. That's what our Prophet ﷺ taught us. And that's what Ramadan reminds us of. And that's what this opportunity presents us with. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us of those who live up to the true values of Iman. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen, ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijabah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. أما بعد, brothers and sisters, mashallah, you see our community growing and growing vastly. We could be a very strong force. If you look, the doors are open. To your right, you see, as far as you could see, to the grass, people coming to pray. We wish every Jumu'ah was like this. We wish every event that really sheds light on one of our community causes gain that type of attention. But today, we want to direct our support to our brothers and sisters in Palestine because it sends a message. We can't as an ummah wait for someone else to do it. We can't as an ummah wait for the United Nations or any country to figure this out, because they've been trying to do that, or at least they say they've been trying to do that for decades on end. We as an ummah need to make a difference and do something about it. Brothers and sisters, we have an organization with us, a respected organization that has a national presence, United Muslim Relief, along with them Dr. Abid Ayoub, who has direct contact with the health ministry in Palestine and the situation over there. And brothers and sisters, this is a good and a beautiful opportunity to show our support for our brothers and sisters. Initially, the ask was for Ramadan baskets, was for food baskets, because, most of us probably can't think of the last day. I'm sure this is most of us. Most of us probably can't remember the last day where some type of meat or expensive dish wasn't on our dinner spread. You know what? Instead of one dish, you probably have 10. And probably you don't even know what to do with the food, because we're fasting and you could hardly eat, and you try to finish the food and your stomach gets hurt, and the leftovers and day to day and all the rest. But that's not the situation for a lot of people in the world. For some people in the world, they gotta wait for a special occasion for them to have meat. That was the initial ask about things that'll nourish the body. But we can't worry about the body if there's no sense of safety and security. We can't tend to the needs of the body if there is no safety, if there is a strong sense of humiliation and degradation and lack of opportunity. So the ask changed from food baskets to providing emergency medical care and support for the things that are happening there now. And the ask is, and they put together a complete emergency medical kit that serves 10,000 people, and that costs $25,000 to put together. Serves 10,000 people. And, unlike our country, we have too many blessings here. Unlike our country, if there is no medicine, or people don't find a way to get it, they're not going to get it. They're not going to have charity care and all kinds of insurance and government-funded projects to provide health care for this and emergency care for that. No. There's too many examples of people who are dying in our Muslim world just because there's not enough resources to help them. They just die away because there's no support. They can't find the means to heal. They don't have the medical support. So anyway, inshallah, after we finish our salah, there's going to be a few minutes and a very quick fundraiser where we could put these words to action, where we could put our strong sense of spirituality to a strong sense of amal, inshallah ta'ala, and hopefully, perhaps, something that we give might save our necks on the day of judgment. اتقوا النار ولو بشق تمرة. Make sure you guard yourself from the fire of hell, even with a half a date. As our Prophet ﷺ, he says, اتقوا النار ولو بشق تمرة. Perhaps me giving will push away some affliction I'm dealing with, some illness I'm dealing with, some problem, something devastating in my... That's what giving does. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, ادفعوا البلاء بالصدقة. Push away affliction with giving, with a strong sense of giving. Those are words of our Prophet ﷺ. Not words that are said just to gain and gather funds. So we as a community, we want to be part of this. This money is going to support our brothers in Palestine, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us of those who have a deep sense of concern and a strong sense of service for the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ighfir lana warhamna وعافنا واعف عنا وتجاوز عن سيئاتنا اللهم اغفر لصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وانثانا وشاهدنا وغائبنا اللهم من احييته منا فاحيه على الايمان ومن امته منا فامته على الاسلام اللهم اجعل خير عمرنا اخره واجعل خير عملنا خواتمه واجعل خير يوما نلقاك فيه وانت راض عنا اللهم فك الكرب عن كل مكروب من امه حبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم يا غياث المستغيثين ويا مجيب السائلين فك الكرب عن أقصى أقصانا، فك الكرب عن أقصانا وعن بلاد المسلمين. اللهم فك الكرب عن إخواننا المستضعفين في سوريا وفي فلسطين وفي مصر وفي كشمير وفي الصين وفي العراق وفي بورما وفي اليمن وفي سائر بلاد المسلمين، أنت أعلم بهم منا. كلهم ناصرا ومعينا ومؤيدا وظهيرا. اللهم إن السماء سماؤك، وإن الأرض أرضك، وإن البحر بحرك، وإن الظالمين لا يعجزونك، فول أمورنا خيارنا، ولا تول أمورنا شرارنا، ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا. آمين آمين. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله. استقيموا يرحمكم الله. There is a space in the far corner of the masjid. Please go and fill it. جزاكم الله خير. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا، إنه هو السميع البصير. وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا، ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا. وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولتعلن علوا كبيرا، فإذا جاء وعد أولاهما بعثنا عليكم عبادا لنا أولي بأس شديد فجاسوا خلال الديار، وكان وعدا مفعولا. ثم رددنا لكم الكرة عليهم وأمددناكم بأموال وبنين وجعلناكم أكثر نفيرا. إن أحسنتم أحسنتم لأنفسكم، وإن أسأتم فلها، فإذا جاء وعد الآخرة ليسوءوا وجوهكم وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة، وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة، وليتبروا ما علوا تتبيرا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها. يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم، فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.